Unit 4. We are doing part 2 of 4.1. I'm just writing graphs, but basically we're saying graphical representation of data. So how can I show the info in a simple, easy graph so that one can see at a glance, get an overall image of how my data looks. And my rule for all graphs, they must be accurate. If you are trying to convey to me which color was liked by the most people, but you don't draw your graph to scale so that I cannot see which one is the most liked, well then you're wasting everybody's time. Your graph has to be accurate. Since I'm working on a tablet, I cannot use a ruler, but I want you to always use a ruler and measure off units so that they are exact, so that you can read the info. Do not waste everyone's time by showing info that's not true. Right, bar graphs simply means they have bars where the heights indicate the frequency, or you could have horizontal bars where the lengths indicate the frequency. Right, when do we use bar graphs most often? For when we have data that is divided up in categories. Right, so for an example, we asked people what type of movies do they like. And the three categories, and I'm just doing a few, seeing as we have to try and draw it all, so I'm trying to just use 3 of them. And then remember this side, frequency tells me how many people. So let's say 15 people liked horror, 27 liked drama, 35 liked romance. Then these are my axes, which are the ones that here I'm going to, even though this is my categories part, and you've got to label your graphs, you've got to tell me what you're showing me here. It's also good to measure it nice in units. This side is going to be my frequency axis. You can put arrows to indicate it's your axis, but that's not absolutely important. And seeing that I'm going up to 35, maybe make it 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay, my 35 is up there. 5. I'm going up in 5s. Then you leave a gap for the first one here, and then here starts my first category, which is horror, and you go as high as its frequency. Now I'm just going to put an H here because of space, but you would actually write horror out. I'm going to do some form of shading just to show so we can see where the graphs go. Then you leave a gap. The next one is drama. If 25 is this height, then let's say 27 is there. Again, because you're going to measure it with a ruler, yours is going to be much more accurate. and you label it at the bottom, you would write the full drama. Someone who reads this must immediately be able to see what you're telling them without a lot of extra info. Now, opposite 35, we're going to do our last bar. And that is romance. What you can do if you want to is at the top of your bar you can write the actual number, especially if it has been a number in between, or if it's not if your graph is not going to show it exactly enough, then you write the actual value at the top. Right, so categories make bar graphs nice, and the bar graphs must have spaces between bars. That's what makes it a bar graph. The next one I'm going to do is called a histogram, which is almost like a bar graph, but it does not have spaces. So that's why you've got to know the difference between the two. And a histogram we use for continuous data because there are no spaces between them. So if you think again, we did an example of children's ages. So your horizontal axis would indicate ages. And again, you've got to mark these exactly to scale. So from 0 to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And this can go up again. You can have a different scale for your vertical axis, but the scale all the way up the axis must be the same. And again, don't just write an F, write frequency. I'm a bit out of space here. So let's say there were 5 children between the ages of 0 and 2. But then the next age goes straight from 2 to 4. That's why they overlap. Maybe there were 15 between the ages of 2 and 4. But there were only 3 between the ages of 4 and 6. So I'm going to mark my 3 here to show that 20 between the ages of 6 and 8. And let's say there was 0 between the ages of 8 and 10. Then there's just no bar there. So here there are bars, but no spaces between your bars. For continuous data, because the one stops at 2 and the next one starts immediately at 2, you don't put gaps between them.